There's one pact in Soulframe that can delete almost anything just by walking past it. Well, if your orbit blades are already flying, that is. This is Tethren, the courage-aligned starter pack from the Kith of Kings faction. I actually held off making this guide for a while. The pack's been so buggy that I wanted to wait until it was fixed before putting real work into it. But since the devs confirmed in the last stream that there's no pact pass coming before Prelude 12, well, if that's still a quarter away, might as well do a quick guide now. So, here we go. Tethren currently revolves around one ability that is basically the entire pact, and two others that contribute slightly. That main ability is Fellust. Let's start there. Fellust might just be the most overpowered ability in the entire game. Shame, it's also completely buggy. Right now, most of what it can do only works with ranged attacks, which basically forces the whole pact into a ranged playstyle. Activating Fellust gives you a buff that is not limited by time, but by strikes. Think of it like 5 bullets in a magazine. Every attack type action burns a strike, sometimes more depending on the move. Each successful strike, meaning one that actually deals damage, adds a stack to your Fellust damage buff. Every landed hit makes the next one stronger, scaling with both courage and the number of stored hits. In short, if all 5 connect, your first hit deals normal damage, your second starts ramping up, and the fifth hits like a bull riding a train straight into your target. Once you reach the 5th strike, effectively emptying your magazine, the buff resets and the ability goes on cooldown. With the Akin node maxed out, that cooldown is very short, letting you cycle it constantly. Currently, as I already hinted, the only attacks that actually benefit from the Fellust damage buff are normal and charged bow shots, bow arrow hails, flyblade normal attacks and orbit blades, magic focus normal attacks but not the charged ones, and thrown melee weapons. Those are your only viable playstyle options right now. You can still build the stacks using melee attacks, but the bonus damage only applies to the weapon types just listed. Missed, blocked or interrupted attacks burn at least 2 strikes instead of 1. So if you whiff, hit into a block or get staggered mid-swing, your combo is done. Careful striking is rewarded. Button mashing is punished. Thrown melee weapons work too, but they consume extra strikes. The good news, if you're down to your last one, the throw still lands at full strength. It just empties whatever is left. Here's how the main weapon types interact with Fellust. Magic Focus and Flyblade normal attacks are fast and great for quickly building stacks. Their main downside, hitting the same target repeatedly makes enemies sidestep or block after 1 to 2 hits. So it's often better to switch targets every few shots. Otherwise, the lock-on tends to miss if they are mid-animation or changing direction. Quick and dirty, but inconsistent. Direct bow shots, both quick and charged, are more reliable. Shield bearers can still block them, but overall they are much more under your control and hit harder than flyblades. Arrow hail is where things get ridiculous. It can't be blocked or evaded, and you only need 1 arrow to hit any enemy inside the range to count as a strike. The total damage over its duration easily rivals a clean charged headshot. It's a perfect opener. Charge 2 arrow hails before the enemy even realizes you are there, and most groups are gone before the intro animation ends. The rain also benefits from the Fellust buff on its first shot, and each use only consumes 1 strike. Basically perfect, with one downside. If you get hit and staggered while charging, it cancels completely. If that's happening often, switch to your faster options for build-up. One more thing. Arrow hail doesn't benefit from your 5th strike bonus, so only use 4 in a row before finishing with something else. Orbit blades behave a bit strangely. They can chew through your entire strike pool during their duration, and kind of like thrown melee weapons, it's best to use them as exactly your 5th strike, where they fully benefit from the damage ramp up. They only benefit from Fellust if you tap the charged throw. Holding the button for a full charge won't trigger the buff. Thanks to their talent that extends duration on kills, you can just stroll through enemies one by one, shredding anything in reach, as long as there's always another target to walk into. Spear throws can also work as 5th strike finisher, and they hit incredibly hard if you manage a perfectly timed headshot, though that's much harder to pull off consistently. In summary, build 4 strikes using arrow hails, bow shots or flyblade normals, and then finish with orbit blades or perfect headshot spear throw. That's the core loop. That's the entire pact basically. Well, okay, there's technically more, but it's not really that relevant. Let's cover it quickly anyway. Next up is Call of the Ancients. It grants a little over 20 seconds of buff time, and that duration doesn't scale with Spirit. The buff itself increases your damage by roughly 50% with only a tiny extra boost from Courage. It also gives a big defensive bump, cutting incoming damage by about half. And that part doesn't seem to scale with Courage either. So it's a pretty decent survival tool for those moments when your kill them before they act plan doesn't quite pan out. The damage bonus stacks additively with Fellust's buff, not multiplicatively. So if you are thinking of saving it for the massive 5th strike, don't bother. It will just add the same amount of damage it would have added to a normal hit. Instead, just use it on cooldown for maximum uptime, either for the defense or before ongoing multi-hit attacks like Orbit Blade, which then again absolutely pair nicely when used as your 5th Fellust strike. It's a solid ability, though next to Fellust's gigantic shadow, it does look a bit small. Alright, with that covered, let's move on to the 3rd button you get to press. Clash. It sends out a short shockwave that grants a bit of stagger protection for a short time and slightly staggers nearby enemies. Its radius doesn't scale with Grace, though its stagger damage does profit a little bit from Courage, less than you will ever notice. The range isn't great and the cast time is long enough to feel like an invitation to get staggered out of the move that's supposed to prevent staggering. It doesn't make you immune to knockdowns or crowd control, and tougher enemies can interrupt you just fine. The stagger and knockback buy you maybe a second of breathing room, barely more than the time it takes to press the button. If you ever realize you have gone several hours evaporating hordes of enemies without pressing it once, congratulations, that means your situational awareness is fully functional. Anyway, Tethren also comes with 2 passives. Let's look at those next. First up is Conqueror. It's pretty straightforward. At max rank, it heals you for about 50 HP flat every time you kill an enemy. Not bad, more healing is always welcome. The thing is, our current strongest moves still hit in multiple ticks, and those ticks can trigger smites, and still do so regularly. So if you devour that soul before your arrows finish off the enemy, you will already be healing multiple times over what Conqueror can provide. Assuming you have maxed out Everbound and Sympathy. Think of it more as a flavorful bonus reward for every kill rather than an actual sustain tool. Next is Last Stand. It kicks in when your HP drops below roughly 45%, granting a buff that lasts until you heal back above that threshold. At max rank, it gives around a 30% attack speed increase. On paper, that sounds great. And it pairs decently with Conqueror's steady trickle of healing, which can help keep you below 45% without topping you off like Sympathy would. The problem is, there's just no real build right now that goes all in on the low HP Berserker idea. And Fellust already overperforms without needing to gamble on staying half dead for extra speed. And since Fellust is all about pacing your strikes and timing each hit carefully, attack speed doesn't really help. You are not spamming attacks, you are waiting for openings, so the extra speed mostly goes to waste. So for now, it's strong on paper, but practically useless in gameplay. Still, don't lose hope. Maybe someday, in a distant update, we will get a Demon's Armor that gives huge damage reduction when you are on the brink of death, or a Blood Drinker's Blade that throws you into a frenzy the lower your HP drops. And when that day comes, we will look back at this humble passive and say, your time has come, old friend. At least until your Zelda Pact teammate ruins everything by constantly healing you. So now that we have covered what makes Tethren actually Tethren, let's take a quick look at the loadout. Basically, the optimal setup is a Courage-aligned bow in your main hand and a Flyblade in your offhand. That lets you build stacks 4 times with normal shots or arrow hails and then finish with Orbit's blades as your 5th strike. If you're absolutely sick of using bows, I totally get it, you can swap in a magic focus for your main hand instead. Build your focus stacks with normal casts, then finish with Orbit blades just the same. Or, if you are playing alongside an Zelda Pact enjoyer who bestones and keeps headshotting everything, you can join the fun. Grab a spear, start throwing at their favorite targets, and laugh as your Fellust boosted throws outdamage their precision shots by a mile. Consider it an act of soulbound friendship. When it comes to attributes and point distribution, it's the same priority list as for most packs. Akin shorten cooldowns, Everbound adds toughness, Sympathy gives absurdly good healing. Max those out and you are golden. As for your main stat, go with Courage. It only gives a small single-digit % damage increase, but the alternatives don't offer anything useful anyway. With this setup and playstyle, you can melt almost anything in Soulframe within seconds, but use it at your own risk. You might get bored of the game before long. It's just that strong. I hope I see you when Preludes 11 hits. If you want more Soulframe content when it does, like and subscribe. See you later, Envoys!